Self-Care and Stress, Episode 89, Alternative Health Tools Podcast.
I'm your host, Lisa Victoria, and I'm with my producer today, John Biethan of Alternative Health Tools. And today we're talking about stress and the impact that this has on our lives. Hi, John.
Hi. So I wanted to be clear that Lisa Victoria is in the UK. So she's the show host and fabulous. And I'm the producer. I'm in America. So there it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and here it's 8 o'clock in the morning. So you can consider this a truly international podcast, right, Lisa?
Absolutely. And I think probably one of the biggest things for me is like, well, how did this all come about? How did we kind of form this relationship where you're the producer and I'm the host? So I guess we should talk a little bit about how we met.
Oh, that'd be great. Why don't you tell your version? I'll tell mine.
And see if they match up, hey?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was last June and I was over in Carlsbad, California, visiting my beautiful cousin. And I happened to go to a Chamber of Commerce event and I met the wonderful John Biethan. And the rest was history, really. We talked about common interests. We talked about health. We talked about all things to do with, mindset, just alternative health tools, really. And I think we connected, didn't we? And we met for coffee afterwards.
Yeah. It was at the Chamber First Friday breakfast, and there's maybe 200 people there, and they set up these tables with 6 people on a table, and there's somebody that facilitates, and they go around the table, and it's like, who are you and what do you do and stuff like that. And I hope I don't embarrass you, Lisa, but I was sitting across the table for you, and I thought for a moment I was seeing an angel. You just had this glow about you, which you later told me you get a lot, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have heard that a few times.
Yeah. So it's really true. If you ever get a chance to meet her, it's true. Actually, you can probably tell just listening to the podcast. But the issue for me, or the opportunity, I should say, was that although Alternative Health Tools, the podcast, had been started in 2014 with Lisa Thorpe, we hadn't done an episode for a very long time. She had done like 3/4 of a year, and I did like 3-4 years. But I was just like kind of done with it, really. And then when I met you, I thought, oh my God, and because we just really hit it off. So yeah.
And there we go. We've revived the alternative health tools between us.
That's right. And it keeps growing. Here's the amazing thing about podcasts, Lisa. I won't talk specifically about the stats, but even while in that break when we weren't doing any episodes before I met you, it continued to grow. It just continued. People just went back and listened to old episodes and stuff. So it just lives on.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Because we can hear something once, but the second time we listen to something, we hear something different or on a deeper level. So that's what I love about the episodes, is you can go back and you can learn more. So even though when we've interviewed people, like when we interviewed Mike Collins, episode 83 on the sugar, listening back to it, even though we interviewed him, I learn something more every time. And that's what fascinates me about podcasting. Like you say, it depends what frame of mind you're in at the time you listen to it, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's the frame of mind. And I often go back and listen to an episode like 2 or 3 times sometimes, just because something that has my attention, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it all. So our topic is stress, right?
Yeah. Before we jump into that, I just want to pick up on, when we met and why this is a passion of mine to want to do this alternative health tools with you. And a number of our guests we've had on, they're from a diverse range of backgrounds. And I love the topic. So for me, it's about the diversity of health and how we can help listeners with different aspects, from stress to losing weight to mindfulness. And I guess we're going to pick up on those sorts of topics when we talk about stress today, because it's not just the mindset and stress, is it? It's all other aspects that come into it.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of what I do, or my studies, have been with personal human personal development, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I might have a little bit different perspective than you. Mm-hmm. But where do you want to start? You're the host.
So I guess my question to you is, what does stress mean to you? And, you know, what's been a defining moment in your life that kind of you would see stress as a trigger? Sure.
I would, I can categorize stress based on some things I've learned to avoid stress, but let's just actually cut to the chase and go to the defining moment, which was in 2009. I had been living in Santa Fe, New Mexico for most of my adult life, like 24 years, and I was an IT marketing person, but I had discovered podcasting in 2004, started podcasting in 2005, had produced 400 shows in, I think it was 2.5 years. That's a lot, right?
So, that is a lot.
A lot, yeah. So, I mean, people were coming in the studio every day, and I had several shows going on. And I was in a bad relationship, a bad business relationship that was not healthy for me, and I think for the other person as well. And at some point, I loved living in Santa Fe. I was there 24 years, but my father had passed away living in Portland, Oregon. My mother was getting older, and I just made the decision that I needed to go back to Portland to be closer to my mother. So I went back, and I was there about a month and had a nasty little heart attack.
Wow.
So at some point, I won't go into the details, but I woke up in a hospital bed after having some surgery, actually a stent put in. And around the bed was my twin sister, my older sister, my brother-in-law, my beloved cousin, and both cousins actually, and a few people. And it just hit me so hard that these people cared so much about me to even show up. And it was just heartfelt, and everything pretty much changed for me there at that moment. And so I got into cardiac rehab, which is awesome. And, the cardiologist basically said, "You're in great shape. Just, keep it up." But I started to go down the rabbit hole on what I could do and doing some, self-investigation about the stress in my life. And so it was a little bit about relationship. It was, but most of it was just really about being organized, which I'm not by nature. So, in fact, I am one of those people that have the gift of ADD. And I do call it a gift because we have some things we can do nobody else can do. We chunk sideways really well. You can talk about it.
Depends which way you look at it, right? It's either something that helps you or something that hinders you. And I always look on the glass half full side of life. So.
Yeah. So for me, there's a lot of things I've learned, and I have a little list here. I could certainly just rattle it off if you'd like, and you can comment on it if you want.
Please do.
Okay. So if you're in business or even in your personal life, one of the things that is going to happen in your life is you're going to have unplanned activities. So let's say you have a business or even at your job and you're working off a task list of things that you need to do. And you're working with a time frame. If you're there 8 hours, you've got 8 hours of work and you've got breaks and lunch and stuff like that. But what's going to happen is that there's going to be unplanned phone calls, unplanned meetings, unplanned conversations, a whole lot of unplanned stuff that if you don't take into consideration when you're planning your day or week or month or even year, then you're going to find yourself a bit stressed out because you didn't plan for the unplanned. So I recommend people, and I do it every day actually, is I plan on those unplanned activities, conversations, meetings, etc.
That's really interesting. And I've been working with a company in the UK called Smarter Not Harder and doing some coaching with them. And that's exactly, the types of things that they touch on how to work smarter, not harder. So you're right. We do get, interruptions, disruptions during the day. And how do we handle those to manage our stress levels? And some of the tools and techniques they kind of teach is that, turn your email notifications off. Put,
Nice.
some time in your diary. So you've blocked out some free time, because then that free time, then you can deal with unplanned activities that come in. Look at your emails at several periods throughout the day, but don't have the email notifications popping up. And then once you've read it, can you put it into your filed folder, or do you respond to it straight away, or do you put a calendar entry in for later that week to say, I need to respond to that email? So there's lots of tips that you can use for managing interruptions through your day.
So what's that company in the UK?
It's called Smarter, Not Harder.
Smarter, Not Harder?
Yeah. I've done some coaching with them, and they're really simple tools and techniques for, time management. And it is because one of the things they say is if you get interrupted, the task that you're working on in that moment, it takes you even longer to get back into it and get that task done. So the more you can limit distractions and interruptions, the quicker you're going to get through your workload, which obviously you can then tick more off your to-do list, and then you can feel that sense of achievement. Nice.
So since you mentioned it, I didn't plan on talking about this, but when I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I met a woman named Liz Davenport. She has a business called Order from Chaos. She's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. All you got to do is use Google to look up Order from Chaos, Liz Davenport. So I met Liz and helped her do some marketing and stuff. But here's the thing about Liz is that she is legally blind, dyslexic, and a real kind of disorganized mess, or at least she was. In fact, she was so bad at being dyslexic and just turned around that when she was in like grade school and high school, she would actually write her assignments on carbon paper and turn them around so that she could, and read them so she could understand them. So
how amazing.
Yeah. She's great. So here's her thing is that the Order from Chaos is organization for the disorganized by the disorganized. So what she says is, and it's absolutely true, I believe, is that the organized cannot organize the disorganized because there's two different ways of thinking about it, So really, really brilliant person and really, really smart. And she's the one that basically gave me the concept of unplanned activities.
The message that I'm hearing in that is that, it's not about, it's being perfectly imperfect, isn't it? And finding your own way to become organized in disorganized chaos. And anyone can do it. You've just got to find a way that works for you.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So just one little tidbit about Liz I discovered is that people use Franklin planners, right? Do you know what that is?
A Franklin planner?
Yeah, it's a diary, as you would say, that, basically has your, calendar and to-do list and a place to write notes. But what most people don't understand is that Ben Franklin, who they modeled it after, was left-handed. So most people are right-handed. So the way the Ben Franklin was designed was that basically, because Ben Franklin was left-handed, the note section was on the left and the calendar stuff was on the right. Because left-handed, he could easily write notes. So what we have a tendency to do with the Franklin planner, if you're right-handed, is cross over from the right to the left to write notes and stuff. Anyway, it's all mixed up. It's all screwed up. So actually, Liz has a planner that is reversed. And it's almost identical. What's that?
And she created it herself.
She created it herself because,
brilliant.
Yeah, she recognized that she was disorganized and she had to figure out a way to organize herself. And she discovered this through research because she's really smart. So anyway, that was my take on kind of planning and unplanning. I have other things. You want to hear them?
Please do.
A lot of people, there's a thing called retail therapy. Right? But really,
I'm sure we've all indulged at some point in our lives in retail therapy.
Yeah, either consciously or unconsciously. And I think the trick is to be conscious about it. But I think many people, and I've been in this situation and not anymore, but live kind of way beyond their means. So that naturally introduces a level of stress in their life. because they're always financially behind, and interest rates on credit cards and that sort of thing. So that's one little tip, or one little thing that has my attention about all this.
It's really interesting you should say that. And I used to be an accountant in a former life, and budgeting and forecasting is kind of close to my heart, and still is when I'm planning my own personal life. And doing some work with the law of attraction and Mike Dooley on a previous episode. And, one of the things with the law of attraction, it's not just, it's not Mike Dooley that kind of advocates this. He says live within your means, but the whole visualization piece. And some people get caught up in thinking, well, if I'm a millionaire, I need to spend money. And you think, well, millionaires don't spend all their money. They save some of it as well. So, picking up on your point about living to your means, you can have the thought about having more money, but you don't necessarily have to spend it. So one of the ways to enjoy having more money is to go window shopping, but not actually purchase the item itself. So no, it's a really good top tip that if you're trying to attract abundance and financial wealth into your life, is you don't have to spend it, as Mike Dooley says. You can just go and do some window shopping, and imagine when that money flows into your bank account, you can then buy it and have that feeling anyway.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. So I'm so glad you took that workshop. It's opened up a whole new world.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I know it wasn't your first one. So like when it comes to buying a new car, it can be the same thing. You might have a car that's just fine, but you're kind of bored with it. So you can make a decision like right now to not buy a car, but to go to the dealership here in the United States, that's what they're called, and test drive some cars and see what you like.
And have fun doing it.
Yeah. So I don't know if I told you, but long story short, I got rid of my car 2 weeks ago. And I've been doing Uber and Lyft. And it's really reduced stress in my life a lot, because I had to consciously think about taking trips. Did I really want to quote unquote spend the money? So here's the other thing I really, really like. Cars in the United States anyway are largely about status, right? So if you have a BMW or a Mercedes, it's pretty cool. To me, a higher level of status would be a Tesla. But so all of a sudden I realized that in doing Lyft and Uber, I basically, I have a chauffeur. So I tell people,
why not?
I get on my app, schedule a ride, and somebody looks at me and I go, oh, I think my chauffeur's outside waiting for me. So that I go outside.
And the beauty of it is you can meet new people and have some wonderful conversations along the way. And if you were driving your own car, you would never have that opportunity.
I know. You can listen to a podcast, or if you want to talk to the guy. The other day, this guy from Australia picked me up in a car, and we got to talking, and he mentioned something about cricket. And I go, I know nothing about cricket. Why don't you educate me about cricket? So it was a 15-minute ride.
I've only got 10 minutes, so be quick.
Yeah, well, that's what I told him. I said, it'll be about 15 minutes till we get there.
Course.
So let's go. So what's going to happen with me is probably on my own podcast, I'm going to start carrying a recorder around in my Uber and Lyft trips and grab some great content from people. Yeah, I really love the experience, partially because I really love relationship. So I really love talking with people.
Yeah.
So
that's wonderful. And John, just before you move on, because I know you've got a list and we're talking about stress, but one of the themes that I'm picking up on here is, whether we're talking about money or time management or, buying a new car, the theme is to challenge your norm, challenge what your routine is, because for you with the car, you challenged your norm. You didn't just go out and buy another car. You looked at different options. Is there another way? Is there a different way? Can it be more fun? And, the same with other aspects of life, like time management. We go through the day and we log on at work, our emails might ping up, we get distracted. So challenge your norm and see as to ways that you could potentially do things differently, and I guess have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing. If it's not fun, I'm not doing it.
That's a great strap line. If it's not fun, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Key takeaway from today's podcast.
Yeah. So the other thing that's huge on my list here, I'll make it really brief, is walk in nature, because nature is the great balancer. So if you look at it from an aspect of masculine and feminine, you can be in your office or at your home right now, and you can look at your TV screen and ask yourself, what's the feeling behind it? Is it masculine or is it feminine? So anything, looking at a TV screen, pretty masculine, pretty square, doesn't have many rounded lines or anything. And then, you can look at a nice, a sculptor or something like that, and you might see more feminine in there. But it's the balance, I think, that we're all looking for. And in nature, it exists in balance mostly. So walking in nature is the great balancer.
Yeah, and I'm a complete advocate of that. I've got my little dog. We walk in nature all the time, and just being Lord Louis, the wonderful Lord Louis, and just being in nature and hearing the trees whistling. And, the research now says that trees have a heartbeat. So if you're walking in nature, you're walking amongst lots and lots of heartbeats. And they actually say that actually hugging a tree there's some real great health benefits. I mean, I don't know too much about that, but I guess it's something fun to try next time you're out and about. Put your inhibitions down and give the tree a hug.
Oh, yeah. So it's not a heartbeat. It's a tree beat of some sort, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you read this somewhere?
Oh, someone mentioned it to me the other day, but again, I don't know the details on it, but it'd be something awesome to read up about.
Well, Lisa, you have from midnight to 6 a.m. You have plenty of time to find out.
I do, don't I?
Let's not and say we did, mainly because that could be stressful. Sleep, right?
Yeah. Sleep, yeah.
Sleep and sugar. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So for me, these are two that are quite close to my heart and linked quite closely to stress. So this again comes back to, a defining moment in my life, a bit like yours with your heart attack, John, my chronic fatigue when I was at university. And, some major influences in my chronic fatigue were lack of sleep, stress, and overuse of sugar. Mm-hmm. So just touching on each of those briefly, I wasn't getting sleep because I was stressed, because I was at university and I had a lot going on. So, I was having lots of negative thoughts that were, contributing to the stress, that I was thinking, I wouldn't be able to get through all my work and do my exams. So then, of course, when my head hit the pillow at night, I couldn't sleep. The mind's whirring round. And this was before I knew about meditation and mindfulness and sleep apps and all that good stuff. And, I'd lie there awake. And then, of course, the impact of sleep or lack of sleep then affects your hormones the next day, which affects your food choices. That's then I was craving more sugar because I was sleep deprived. So my hormones were all out of balance. So I was constantly eating sugar all day to keep my energy levels topped up. And then I'd have the dips and I'd be feeling stressed because then I couldn't do my work because I was feeling tired and I was on this vicious cycle. So for me, the stress, the sleep and the sugar kind of are all very much interlinked and, a contributing factor to my health concern.
Wow. So, so my takeaway on what you just said was that, people do sugar because it's an addiction. And what was it? Episode 83 on sugar addiction?
Episode 83 with Mike Collins on sugar addiction.
Highly recommend people go listen to it at least once and make some, well, you don't even have to make some notes, but what was mentioned there, I remember, is talking about Eric Clapton's addiction to cocaine. And Eric Clapton was interviewed and, they said, oh, so you started your addiction with cocaine. And Eric said, no, I got started with these butter, cinnamon, sugar, toast breads that my mother served me. And my mother had served me that. And I don't know if your mom did, but we all got started pretty early and it was all about sugar addiction. But people are doing sugar for the energy.
Yeah. I always sugar was always a treat, wasn't it? When we were young, it was always, you can have sugar after your dinner as a treat, or if you've been good, you have a pack of sweeties or you have your pudding after your dinner. Mm-hmm. It was always associated with as a treat.
Tapioca pudding. Love it. No, I do.
Brings back all those memories and the emotions, and that's good. That's a whole different topic of emotional eating, isn't it? But,
cheesecake, love it.
Yeah.
Oh, stop. You got me going. I'm sorry.
I think, yeah, picking up on, the three things for me, the sugar, the stress, and the sleep. So thinking about episode 86 with Alan Cohen, he talks about being your authentic self. Certainly when I was at university, I didn't feel like I was my authentic self. I wasn't living my authentic life. So if anyone hasn't listened to episode 86, I'd highly recommend that, because if you're not living your authentic self or your life purpose, then life can be stressful because you're feeling frustrated because you're not being true to yourself. So that can also contribute to stress. And then the last one, which, ties in with the chronic fatigue syndrome, is episode 88 with Dr. Jaffe, which was about immune function. That was an amazing episode as well.
It sure was.
Oh, how our immune system, can be triggered by all sorts of things. And he gave some real top tips in there for managing stress, didn't he? Like taking the bath with the Epsom salts and things like that. And
yeah.
Yes. So it's had some amazing material in episodes 83, 86 and 88 as well for stress.
Yeah. And all those episodes, actually, anybody can do. This is self-care, right?
Yes.
This is self-care. And so when on my list, which you just covered, was, it's kind of the question is, what's your lifestyle? How do you style your life for your own well-being and health? And then
have you ever actually considered it, or did it take a life-changing event like for me, you, John, to actually take a step back and say, what am I doing here? What's my self-care regime?
Yes.
Because I didn't have one before. I was just kind of bobbing along in life, and whatever life threw at me, I kind of went along for the ride, and I don't think I had much self-care going on.
So it's like self-inquiry. That's
what, sorry?
Self-inquiry, question things. People generally don't. So, like with Super Bowl here yesterday, I sort of started contemplating, what is it about Super Bowl that people really, really like? And I don't really have any answers right now, but it's kind of the hype. It's the exciting. It's the, it's the things we do, like, drugs to numb ourselves, sugar to give us energy, and other kinds of addictions that actually keep us from feeling ourselves and feeling life and experiencing life. And as I like to say, is that all life is one experience after another. So the question is,
I guess we're looking for external things, aren't we, to give us that feeling? So is it the sugar? And if you're looking for that feeling, then what Alan Cohen talks about is you're not being your authentic self, because if you're your authentic self, you have that feeling anyway. Yeah. You don't need to go searching externally. And it's quite incredible, really, isn't it? That certainly I was looking externally all those years for happiness. And
it starts from the inside out, as far as I'm concerned. As I often tell people when they talk about some pain that they're involved in, is most of the time, I can identify it as an inside job. We do it ourselves. We suffer ourselves. Things don't happen to us externally much. I mean, car accidents, stuff like that can happen. But most of the suffering we as humans experience is done by ourselves, in our mind, in our talk.
Well, there's an equation, isn't there, that the event is only actually 10% of the outcome, and how we choose to respond to it affects 90% of the outcome. So if we have a negative thought and a negative feeling, then it's going to adversely affect the outcome. Whereas if we can flip it and think positively, what can I learn from this? What's the good that I can squeeze out of it? Then the outcome's going to be completely different. So you're absolutely right. It's how we react to life, isn't it?
It is. All right. So given that before we started recording, we talked about how busy a day is and we don't want to get too stressed out. Are we done here?
I think we are. I think we've covered lots and lots of material there. And I think, we need to go and do our self-care. Exactly. All right. So why don't you wrap it up, and I'll stop the recorder. And I just want to remind people to go to alternativehealthtools.com, the podcast, and do take a look at the episodes that Lisa mentioned. And Lisa, how do we get in touch with you? So I'm Lisa Victoria. So if anybody wants to get in touch, go to lisavictoria.co.uk because I'm in the UK. So it's .co.uk.
Nice.
And there's an online form there. You can reach out to me.
Okay, good. You can get a hold of me at johnbiethan.com, and that's Biethan. And then I also want to encourage people, subscribe. And if you like it, tell people about it. The number one way podcasts actually get discovered is by people saying, hey, I heard this great podcast. It's called Alternative Health Tools.
And we can find them on many different places now, can't we, John?
Yeah,
Apple,
actually.
Google, Spotify.
Yeah.
Any of those.
Yeah. Apple, Google, Spotify, about 65 other networks, actually. And one of the great things about Google is you can simply search in Google for alternative health tools, and it'll come right up. And there's actually, the way Google's doing things, it embeds a little player there, and you can listen to the most recent couple episodes if you want, right from Google.
Fantastic. So key messages from today: self-care, challenge your norm, and have some fun.
Exactly. Have fun, because if not, we're not doing it.
Exactly. Great to talk to you, John.
Nice talking with you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.